Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful night. Tonight, I will be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. Make sure to leave your feedback on the comments so I can make this the best experience for you. I hope you are warm and ready. Let's begin. This story happened recently, and for some context, me and my friends are teens that like to explore and do stupid stuff like normal teenagers do. We found this tunnel that was a drain under a busy road. We had to crouch and sit on our skateboards to explore it since the height of the tunnel was short. As we were going deeper into the tunnel, it gets pitch black and the flashlights from our phones can only reach about 5 feet in front of us. So we were blind to what we could come across until we were very close to it. In the tunnel, I remember the wall was painted in all red and had sheets of metal with white handprints connected to clothespins. We decided to keep going until we reached what we thought was a dead end. It was not. On the left, there was a more square tunnel compared to the rectangle shape we were in. In the distance of the connected tunnel, there was a bright light coming from the outside shining from above onto a red shopping cart with belongings in it. We slowly inched towards the light where the shopping cart was. The light turned out to be a big hole in the ground that we could crawl out of if we needed an escape. As we were about to pass the shopping cart, my friend who was in the lead was too afraid to go forward anymore. It was pitch black 5 feet from where we were. I decided to take the lead and keep going. I stepped past the shopping cart and stopped. I don't know what it was, but I was afraid. I had a gut feeling something was back there. I slowly moved back. I stopped. Before I could put everything together, a loud echo of someone pounding an object on the walls of the tunnel struck me back, causing everybody to freak out and crawl out of the escape hole. Once we got out, a homeless man ran to us, asking us what we were doing in there. We told him we were just exploring. He explained to us that there is a man that lives underground in that tunnel and he would have killed us if we went further. The man was apparently crazy and threw a rock at the poor guy's head before. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but even though that was scary and dangerous, it was fun, and I'm glad I experienced it. My upbringing taught me there was nothing fun and dysfunctional, with most of my childhood spent daydreaming of being rescued and living happily ever after. I called Child Protective Services. I ran away to the police station. I went to my principal. Other parents and witnesses spoke up. Yet, somehow, I'd always be returned home. We're talking the late 80s. Here, when kids were not listened to and had no voice. At least, such was my experience. At the time of this encounter, my parents were caretakers for a multi-unit apartment complex. It was surrounded by vast fields on two sides, a main road at the front, and behind our unit, there was the treasured forest. In reality, it was a swath of older pines kept as a buffer between a second main road and said unit. Though perhaps 6 feet wide to a 19-year-old girl, it was a forest. My friends and I would spend our days running all over the place, hiding, picking wild berries in the fields, playing games, riding bikes, and playing in the woods, just being kids. One day, after non-stop verbal and physical abuse, I decided it was time to run away and live on the streets. Anything was better than living with my family, especially my mother. All the unsolved mysteries. Episodes didn't deter my little self from making this choice. I was convinced anything would be better. Packed up my tiny bag, grabbed my favorite doll, snuck out the window of my room, ground floor, and ran like a bat out of hell into my beloved forest with my egg donor's tirade carrying on behind me until the woods swallowed up the noise. Out of the house, no one realizing I was missing, I hid inside a tree branch, fort all of us kids made, and had myself a good cry. As the sun began to go down, casting that golden summer glow, it was time to start walking. Pick a direction and head to a new life, as only a child could. I managed to bumble about and emerged further down the tree line. Apartments to my back and road in front of me. I don't know what stopped me right there on the dirt edge of the road, but there I stood. Whoosh. Whoosh. Pause. Whoosh. 3 vehicles pass so quickly and closely. The force of the wind whips my hair and clothes around in a fury, and I adjust my footing to better brace myself. I clutch my doll tighter and freeze. A 4th vehicle was coming up. A white utility van. Immediately, our eyes lock. Time slows. The van slows. He turns down the hairband he's jamming to. His face loses the nonchalant, happy headbanger smile and transforms into a nervous, giddy, opportunistic predator. 30 plus years later, and I recall every detail. A silver gouge along the passenger door. Early 20s white man, dirty blonde, wavy shoulder-length hair. Hazel brown eyes, chipped upper left front tooth. Smoker, white baseball cap, no shirt, knotted scar tissue on left pee-pee. The passenger door began to slide open, his head swiveling and eyes darting while coming over that seat. Converse sneaker dangling to find purchase on the road. Freeze went to flight. I didn't want to go home, but the wave of nausea and certainty of a horror I wouldn't live through were overpowering. I ran back to the apartment, went through the front door, and endured another beating by my mother. I didn't know it then, but I learned in time. She made me a fine-tuned empath. I didn't doubt my spidey senses then, and don't to this day. Whomever he was going to be the end of me if I'd waited a moment longer. So today has been a particularly slow day at work, and I've been killing time, reading these stories. Maybe enough time has passed and I can share mine. I had this friend who was really into the occult. Unfortunately, I was the one who got him turned on to it. We had a mutual appreciation of the paranormal and all things weird, so I thought the subject would interest him. He started going deep into the subject to the point where he wouldn't talk about anything else. He would actually interrupt a conversation and force the subject back to occult matters. Rude. But sometimes people go through phases where their interest is all they want to talk about. It was a mostly forgivable offense. I think I should mention that this particular friend didn't have a very large friend circle. His depression and introverted nature kept him inside a lot. He didn't have the best luck in relationships with women. His world was kind of small, and I did enjoy hanging out with him, so I did my best to be a good friend. I didn't want to just brush him off because he was acting a little weirder than normal. Honestly, for the longest time, he was a totally normal guy. We'd chat and play games together on the PlayStation. Sometimes we'd go see movies, with my boyfriend accompanying us. We all hung out at the park. We went swimming. Overall, we had a good time hanging out. Things started to go downhill when he started to smoke dent. Personally, I think psychedelics are amazing tools that can offer insight into your life, but they should be treated with respect. My friend got to the point where he was making it himself. Apparently, a pretty easy thing to do after a meager amount of research, and he was smoking it daily, multiple times a day. For those of you who aren't familiar with the substance, when you smoke it, you get transported to a different world, an entirely new plane of existence. Your body and yourself don't exist anymore. You're just exploring this alternate reality dreamscape. My personal experience with it led me to seeing a dragon once in this kaleidoscope of a cornucopia. People see all kinds of different things there. Imagine what that does to a person when they're smoking it 30 times in a day. He started telling me things like he was the reincarnated Osiris. He said he was seeing Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the place in waking life. Apparently, he had hour-long conversations with entities in his bedroom, even when he wasn't smoking dim. Of course, I was very alarmed to hear all of this, and I told him he needed to take a serious break. No drugs at all for a few months, so he can find solid footing in reality again. At this point, I was still hanging out with him because he obviously needed some help. And like I said before, he didn't have a lot of friends that could give him that. He was also the black sheep of the family. So I knew he wasn't getting any kind of support from them. He was really close to his sister, and I did reach out to her on Facebook to express my concerns. I pushed her to talk him into getting some psychiatric help because he was slipping past the point of no return. I'm not really sure if she took my messages seriously since we didn't really know each other. Plus, she is at least 6 years younger than us and possibly didn't grasp how serious the situation was becoming. In any case, I'll jump forward now to the part where things start to get really creepy. My boyfriend had made arrangements to hand out with our friend at the park. I didn't really want to go because I felt like I needed a break from him and his nonsensical ranting. I just couldn't deal with it on that particular day. My boyfriend said he wasn't all that bad, and we went anyway. We get to the park, and he is his usual self, ranting about Egypt and made-up gods that only he knew the truth about, etc. He also had this large hunting knife that he kept fiddling with the whole time we were on a walk. He told us that he had been using it in ceremonial magic, and that it helped to banish negative thoughts. It made me extremely uneasy. He would do this thing where he would take a sharp object and make motions near his head, all while holding a conversation with me or my boyfriend. I think we were both really on edge and didn't know what to say or do about it. I tried to distract him from doing it by bringing up other subjects that might interest him, but he kept on with his ritual. Keep in mind we were walking on a trail, so it wasn't like we could just say goodbye then and there. We had to walk back to our car and drop him off at his car. My boyfriend had the bright idea that we should get some lunch after our walk, even though I was doing my best to give him a look that said, "No, you crazy fuck. Why do you think I want to spend any more time with this nut?" But it must not have been very effective. Or my boyfriend was ignoring it. Not sure. Either way, we ended up getting in the car to go get lunch. In the car I was driving, my boyfriend was in the passenger seat, and our weirdo friend was in the back. As we're heading through a busy part of town where all the shopping and restaurants are, I hear the distinctive sound of a belt buckle coming undone. Then I hear the worst sound imaginable. I peek back out of the corner of my eye, and my suspicions were confirmed. This crazy fucker was masturbating in our back seat. Instantly, I felt sick to my stomach, and all the nervous energy I had throughout the day popped up into my head. I was trying not to shake, and trying to ignore it and drive through heavy traffic. I kind of had a freeze response, I guess. The whole time I kept thinking about that huge-ass knife he had in his pocket, and obviously he was completely off his rocker now. I was afraid to say anything or confront him because I didn't know how he was going to react. This part is nuts, but my boyfriend didn't fucking seem to notice, and the whole time he kept rambling on about God knows what. I couldn't listen because my thoughts were 100 focused on driving and trying to act like I didn't know what was going on in my back seat. We get to the restaurant and my boyfriend runs inside to grab food. I'm left alone in the car with our friend, and I try to act like I'm browsing on my phone when really I'm watching and listening as hard as I can. We don't talk. My boyfriend gets back and I complain that I'm tired. It's been a long day. Let's drop him off, etc. So I drive us back to our friend's car, and he doesn't get out of our vehicle. He just sits there. I have to get a little bit rude and ask him to please get out and go home. He gets out of our car and walks over to his passenger side. I start getting really scared, and I suspected the worst. He pulled a gun out of some kind of bag he had on the seat, and he just walks over to our car with it. I don't know why the fuck I did this, but I was so pissed I just got out of my car and walked right up to him. I was maybe 3 feet away and could see it was a loaded 9M. I kept asking him over and over, "What are you doing?" Because apparently that's all my brain could think to do. I told him to get in his car and go home. He never said anything during this whole time, just kind of cried and had this wild look in his eye. For whatever reason, he got back into his car and drove off. I told my boyfriend, obviously we are never hanging out with him again, and that I didn't even want him to talk to him anymore. No contact, nada. A few months pass, and he occasionally messages me through the PlayStation, or texts my phone. He says a lot of random stuff, and I just ignore it. It turns out he moved down to teen near Nashville. I don't know why. He had a roommate, and I think their girlfriend lived there. I'm not really sure about the situation. I think maybe he's turning his life around and getting a fresh start down there. I think it's best to cut all contact and let him regroup. I'm not interested in any kind of friendship with him, and I know he needed help beyond what I could offer. Again, I reached out to his sister and let her know that he had a gun. She managed to get it from him somehow, but it did little good in the end. I get a call around 11 p.m. one night that wakes me up. It's a man claiming he's a detective down in Gallatin. Teen, and my heart skips a beat. I start sweating and immediately ask what happened. Apparently, my former friend stabbed someone to death on Halloween Day. I don't know all the details, and the articles about it are kind of sparse. The whole thing is really surreal, and I'm just left feeling like I'm lucky that I didn't get shot last summer. This whole thing turned out way longer than I meant it to be. But that's the story. I'm still feeling creeped out by the whole ordeal, and I'm kind of feeling sick after writing all of this.